Let's talk about buying a home. It's held up as the American dream, but for way too many people, it's quickly turning into a financial nightmare. And you know why? Because the old playbook just doesn't work anymore. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden mistakes that can make or break what is, for most of us, the biggest financial decision of our entire lives.
So, if you're looking at the housing market right now and you're feeling this crazy mix of excitement and, let's be honest, pure terror, you are in exactly the right place.
And hey, you are definitely not alone in feeling that way. This is a huge, high-stakes decision, and trust me, tons of people are feeling that exact same pressure.
But I want one number to just sear itself into your brain. 82%. What does that number mean? Well, think of it as a giant warning sign.
Yeah, that's right. A full 82% of recent homebuyers have regrets. That is a staggering number, right? And this isn't from some random blog post. This is from the National Association of Realtors. So our whole goal here is pretty simple, to give you the tools so you don't end up as part of that 82%.
So what's really driving this huge wave of buyer's remorse? Well, let's just dig into the most basic numbers, because honestly, they tell a pretty shocking story all on their own.
Okay, let's start with the absolute basics, the cash leaving your bank account every month. The median rent here in the US is sitting around $1,845. The median cost to own a home, almost $2,700. That's an $800 difference every single month. I mean, just looking at that, renting seems like a total no-brainer, right?
But wait, it gets even wilder. There's this famous buy versus rent calculator out there, and in a lot of today's markets, it shows it can take over 20 years just to break even on buying a house. Now here's the kicker. Look at that other bar. The median time people actually stay in their homes, just under 13 years. So you see the problem, right? The average person sells their house long before they ever actually break even.
So, okay, with numbers like that, why on earth would anyone even think about buying? Well, there are two massive, game-changing reasons. First up is leverage. Say you buy a $500,000 house with $50,000 down. If that house goes up in value by just 10%, your $50,000 investment just doubled. It's like your money is on steroids. And the second reason, it's basically a forced savings account. Every mortgage payment you make builds your equity. And let's be real, most of us aren't disciplined enough to save and invest that consistently if we're renting.
All right, so let's move past the big ideas and get into some super practical rules of thumb that you can use, like right now, to figure out your own situation. These are simple but powerful.
First up, we've got the price-to-rent ratio. This is a classic, super easy way to get a quick read on your local market. All you do is take the home's price and divide it by the total rent you'd pay for a similar place over one full year.
So what does that number actually tell you? Well, here's the cheat sheet. If you get a number under 15, that's a pretty strong green light for buying. Between 16 and 20, it's kind of a toss-up, a real gray area. But if that number is 21 or higher, that's a huge red flag telling you that, financially, renting is probably the smarter move.
Okay, now for a rule that I think is just brilliant, the 9% rule. This is all about estimating the money you'll spend on a house that you'll never get back. It's just gone. You've got about 6.5% for mortgage interest, 1% for property taxes, 1% for insurance, and another 1% for repairs. It all adds up to around 9% of your home's value just vanishing, year after year.
So here's the bottom line. If you can rent that exact same house for less than 9% of its sticker price per year, renting is the better financial play, period. So for an $800,000 house, that 9% comes out to $72,000 a year, or $6,000 a month. If you can rent it for less than $6,000, well, the math speaks for itself.
But let's be real. This decision is never, ever just about the math on a spreadsheet, right? Your life, your career, your family. That stuff matters just as much, if not more. So let's look at the human side of the equation.
You know where you are in life is absolutely critical. In your 20s, your biggest asset is mobility. Being able to pack up and move for a killer job opportunity is huge. A house can feel like an anchor. In your 30s, things might start to shift, but that flexibility is still gold. It's really when you get to the family stage that stability starts to outweigh almost everything else. And you know, part of what makes this so tough right now is that the whole idea of a starter home is basically becoming a myth. Just look at this. Back in the 70s, 40% of all new homes built were small, affordable ones. Today, it's down to a measly 7%.
And before you blame the builders, it's not that simple.
The cost for permits, the zoning laws, the price of labor and materials, it's all gone through the roof. So to make any money at all, they're kind of forced to build these bigger, more expensive homes. And the result for you and me? That first rung on the home ownership ladder is getting sawed off.
Okay, and on top of all that, there are these huge hidden risks that most people don't even think about until it's too late. I'm talking about things like local politics and, this is a big one, the insurance market.
And this insurance thing is getting scary fast. I mean, it used to be a given, right? You buy a house, you get insurance. But now, in places like California, huge insurance companies are literally packing up and leaving. They're just refusing to write new policies because of wildfire risks. Can you imagine that? You finally find your dream home, you get the mortgage, and then you find out you can't even get the insurance you need to close the deal. It's an absolute nightmare.
Okay, so with all these landmines out there, what are you supposed to do? Let's get really practical. Here's a 4-step action plan to put yourself in the driver's seat before you make any big moves.
First, get your credit score as high as you possibly can. Seriously, the difference between an okay score and a great score can save you hundreds every single month. Second, shop around for your mortgage. Never, ever take the first offer. Make the lenders fight for your business. Third, and this is maybe the most important, be patient. Rushing is the #1 reason people have regrets. And finally, do your homework on the property itself. Go there on the morning, at night, on the weekend. The last thing you want is a surprise rave next door every Saturday night.
Because at the end of the day, after all the math and the spreadsheets, we have to admit this isn't always a logical decision. It's emotional. Sometimes you just walk into a place and it just feels right. You fall in love with it.
So, how do you avoid joining that 82% club? Just keep a few final things in mind. Fun fact, people are way more likely to regret buying a home that's too small than one that's too big. And please, check out the neighbors and the noise situation. But also, don't discount that feeling. There's a real, powerful, intangible value in having a place to call your own. So that's what we want to leave you with. After all the math is done and all the pros and cons are weighed, what's the value to you of calling a place your own? That's the one calculation nobody else can do for you.